All right. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we should be starting in the next 10 minutes. Kindly begin to organize yourself and help us settle down. You may begin to call colleagues who are far off here and try to let them know that we're about beginning in the next 10 minutes. Thank you. In the meantime, a few quick housekeeping announcements if need. Translations: English is 2, French is 4. If you have the translation devices, please, English is 2 and French is 4, I'm told. Kindly raise your hands and get a device. In the next 10 to 15 minutes minimum, we should start. Let's begin to settle, ladies and gentlemen. In the next 10 minutes maximum, we should begin to start the program. Translation: French is 2, English is 4. Translation: French is 2, English is 4. Kindly get a device and get settled. We're about starting the program. Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're about starting in 2 minutes. In less than 2 minutes, we should start. Shall we be seated, please? Those of us who are standing, kindly find yourself a seat. Those of us who are in the periphery, please come closer. Let's just join, please. Those sitting on the shoulders, please come closer. Once again, we're about to start the program in 1 minute. Our distinguished guests are about seated in a short while. Those of us who are still sitting at the shoulders, if you can find yourself in the middle of the aisle, settle down and let's wait for our distinguished guests, please. Interpretation devices are available in case you need one. The French is 2, if you get one. The English is 1. The English is 4, I should say, if you get a copy of one of the devices, please. All right. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the last announcement or the devices that we have. Once again, I am reminded to tell you that the devices, if you need to utilize the French version, you use the number 2. And then the English version, you use the number 4. If you don't have one of those devices, you can just raise your hands and they will help you. Okay? We're about to start. His Excellency, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, joins us. If we are in the position to, shall we be upstanding? Those of us who can. Thank you very much. We thank you very much, Your Excellency. We thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate leadership. We are here to celebrate visionary leadership, and we are here to celebrate good and collaborative partnership that have lived for years, that is driving the economic and financial growth of our continent all this while, and it is to drive it in the many years of future to come. That is why we are all gathered here. We are privileged to join by His Excellency, Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat. We're going to be joined by His Excellency, the President of AfCFTA pretty shortly. But a lot of people have asked questions about AfCFTA. You walk around everywhere and people are asking. You go to the streets of Algiers and people are asking. Yesterday we were at the concert and people were asking about AfCFTA. Everywhere you go. And His Excellency Wamkele, man, dynamic man who has devoted himself to ensure that every individual African understands the AfCFTA, this morning has volunteered to talk to us about AfCFTA. We'll also talk greatly about the partnership with AfCFTA that has brought us thus far. A partnership that has created major platforms, which is bringing about, a lot of people can see millions of Africans here in Algiers today. About 34,000 businesses from 140 countries all gathered in Algiers because of this partnership and the form that we are seeing today. And that's why we are celebrating this platform. That's why we are celebrating this partnership and for which we are here. Before His Excellency the President of AfCFTA Bank joins us, His Excellency Wamkele Mene is with us, and we are going to engage him on a number of things, including even what the AfCFTA is all about. For those who have been wondering, how far have we come? How far has this partnership, the IATF, in the marketplace for the AfCFTA, how far have we come, and all of that together? And I'm sure that you would enjoy this conversation, you would enjoy this chat at the end of the day. Quite a number of things are going to happen right after that as well. There will be very beautiful scenes you cannot afford to miss, which we encourage you to call all your partners to join us if they are not here already. Your Excellency, welcome. Right, thank you very much. We begin with the AfCFTA generally, and as I mentioned, Your Excellency and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, with the question of what the AfCFTA is all about, with the question of what the single African market is all about, creating one market is all about, the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, and the future, the economic and financial future of this continent is all about. If you can shed some bit of light on the AfCFTA starting with, Your Excellency.
Well, thank you very much. First, let me apologize for the late start. All of the sessions in the morning started late, and that had a ripple effect on the entire program. So I'm very happy that we get to have this conversation, and I look forward to the dialogue. The AfCFTA, as you rightly said, is about market integration. It's about creating a single, compelling, industrious market in Africa. We have on our continent 55 countries. We have fragmentation that runs very, very deep. We have 42 currencies. We have artificial borders. We export more to the rest of the world than we export and import from one another. And all of this causes us to be constrained in our development as a continent. And so, in the wisdom of our heads of states, they decided that we need to accelerate the vision of an integrated economy in Africa, which, as we all know, is not a new vision. This is something from as far back as 1963, when the continent of Africa established the Organization of African Unity. And one of the objectives there was to create a single integrated economy in Africa. And the reality is that has evaded us up until 2015. So today, we have the opportunity in the AfCFTA to have an integrated market that will be borderless in terms of goods and services that transit through our borders. The continent of Africa has a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. Our population is 1.4 billion people, very similar to India, very similar to China, but we are relatively less developed. And our contribution to global GDP is around 3.1%. Our contribution to global trade is about 2%. And yet, when you look at China's contribution to global trade, India's contribution to global trade, similarly populated. So clearly, there's an imperative for us to leverage on all of the positive attributes that we have by creating this single market and overcoming the fragmentation that existed. So this is a broad vision. What does that mean in reality for a small medium enterprise? Well, it means that if you have your operations in Algeria, you now have access to the rest of the 48 state parties of the AfCFTA. You have an opportunity to scale. You have an opportunity to expand your investments, expand your market access to new regions, to new markets across the continent. And we believe, along with Afreximbank, when President Oramah comes, he will tell you also this from his thinking, that the drivers of Africa's economy are, of course, informal traders. They are small enterprises. They are informal, they are smallholder farmers, rather. And all of these different segments of Africa's engine of growth contribute over 60% of Africa's GDP and create over 450 million jobs. So we want to make sure that as we implement the AfCFTA, as we roll out the market, that there are opportunities for young people, for small mid enterprises, all of these drivers of Africa's economy. So we have created these rules, and they are very, very abstract, but they have a direct impact on Africa's economic development and how we are able to create opportunities for our own businesses to contribute to Africa's development.
Great. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me remind us that we have a chart that's coming up with His Excellency Wamkele, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, as well as the President of Afreximbank, who will be joining us pretty shortly. We're going to be talking a lot about the IATF as a platform, the marketplace for the AfCFTA, which is bringing all the businesses and bringing the continent together as we're beginning to see. In the meantime, we're having this conversation with His Excellency Wamkele Mene for us to understand how far the AfCFTA has even come, for which we have created a marketplace for, and what the future seeks to bring to all of us. And Your Excellency, you talk a lot about the tools and some instruments and the avenues and rules in particular that have been created, particularly for small and medium enterprises. And there are quite a number of small and medium enterprises that we have seen here in pavilions and all of that. And some on continent that are watching you. Exactly how can they take advantage of some of the rules, the instruments, and the protocols that have been set by the AfCFTA?
We made a very, very deliberate decision that we do not want this to be just another trade agreement that we negotiate that benefits trade lawyers, bureaucrats like me, that it must really be a living instrument that creates opportunities. Probably the easiest thing to do is to negotiate a trade agreement. But the most difficult part is to implement it in such a manner that opportunities are created. So what we've done working with AfrEximbank very closely is to identify tools that will enable SMEs, youth entrepreneurs, to be part of the drivers of Africa's economy. I'll mention a few examples. Payments, we spoke about it, we talked about it yesterday. The cost of currency convertibility in Africa, we estimate it to be close to $5 billion. And $5 billion is when you are in Ghana, your counterpart is in Kenya, and you seek to, President is here, let's allow him to get settled.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the President of AfrEximbank, Professor Oramah. Welcome, sir.
President, welcome. We started without you, but we've just started. I was just explaining that we took a deliberate decision that we don't want this to be just another trade agreement, that we actually want it to be a trade agreement that people take advantage of. And so the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System is an important tool that we've introduced. The AfCFTA Adjustment Fund, which already AfrEximbank has capitalized, over $1 billion that has been made available. The Africa Trading Companies that will support integrators of goods and services at national level, the Africa Trade Gateway, and all of the functionalities that are in it. So we look at the spectrum of all of these tools that we've introduced. We want to make sure that all of the small medium enterprises are able to take advantage of this vast market. If you are able to pay in local currency, which is what PAPS does, if you are able to identify a specific market, which is what Africa Trade Gateway does, if you know with certainty what tariff applies to your products, what customs procedures apply to your products, that enables you to move much faster in market access, in accessing a new market and expanding businesses. All of these are the tools that we have been working together to introduce to make sure that this becomes a market that is driven by the most important segments of Africa's economic society. The big banks, the big corporations, they don't really need us. They can transcend into new markets overnight. But where we are required to provide support is with our small medium enterprises and youth. And that's why all of these tools that I mentioned are so critical to this endeavor.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and we are glad that His Excellency the President of AfrEximbank is here, because all the things that you've talked about, the instruments and the tools that have been made available through the Secretariat and your partnership with the other important organizations that you work with, you have gone ahead to create a platform, a huge market platform for the continent, and that is the Intra-Africa Trade Fair that we all celebrate today. It has gone round. We've been to other countries. We've been to South Africa. We've been to Cairo. Today we are in Algiers. It brings about 34,000 businesses. It brings about 140 countries. And a lot of people coming through, connecting Africans and connecting African businesses together. As a matter of fact, the African Continental Free Trade Area, that's the AfCFTA, and the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, the IATF, represent two of the continent's most ambitious and transformative initiatives under the framework of the Africa Union's Agenda 2063. Now, together, they have provided a platform for advancing Africa's economic integration and mobilizing private sector engagement and accelerating intra-Africa trade. The part that interests all of us who are gathered here today, including myself, is that we are privileged to be joined by the visionary leaders who commenced and have been leading this particular platforms that are bringing Africans together. Since we have you here, we want to take advantage to know the story. Share with us where this journey has come from, the IATF, the AfCFTA partnership, and what led to it. Maybe, Your Excellency, Secretary, since you began, I will, at this point in time, turn to President Oramah to help us with that. Share with our Excellency why this partnership.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know where to start, but maybe let me start from history. In 1963, at the first meeting of the African leaders who created the Organization of African Unity in Addis Ababa, they made certain important decisions. Among them were a few that are today driving regional integration. They said they wanted to set up a continental free trade area among themselves. They said they wanted to create what they then called an African Payment Union. That's what they called it at that time. They said they wanted to create a transit scheme. They said other things. They talked about run African trade fairs. They also spoke about removing African currencies from technical attachment to all the foreign currencies. There were one or two other important economic decisions they made. That was in 1963. Decades from then, nothing happened. And when they were doing this, as the pioneer leaders of the new Africa, it was because they understood the problems that was standing between going from political independence to economic empowerment and independence. They knew that unless we moved Africa from being a fragmented, atomistic continent, we are not going to get anything. We will just be carrying flags, but no power. But to do that, you have to bring down the walls. Even if you don't bring down the walls politically initially, you have to bring them down from trade and economic perspective. And that was why they talked about the Continental Free Trade Area, to remove barriers among them so they could trade freely. But they also knew that to trade, you couldn't trade for two payment systems, not talking to each other. You transfer value through payment. But if, as one man said in Abuja a few months ago, the Naira has to go to the US to take permission for the dollar to be able to pay CD, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just prolonging the process and making it more difficult. So people will find it cheaper to trade with others than to trade among themselves. Because we spend $5 billion every year in just charges to pay ourselves. I'm not saying paying somebody else, just amongst ourselves. $5 billion every. And it takes between, if you are lucky, there's a few minutes to 2 weeks to get payments consummated, if they get consummated. And they also knew that the biggest barrier to trade is information. You see, many people talk about infrastructure being the biggest constraint to intra-African trade. But what people have not sat back to consider is that Africa's stock of infrastructure today carries about $1 to $1.4 trillion of African trade. The question is, why is intra-African trade share of that $1.4 trillion just 200 to 300 billion? It is because the man or woman in Ghana does not know what exists in Guinea. He will go and buy exactly what Guinea exports from somewhere else because he doesn't know. The average trader knows more about what is happening in other parts of the world than they know about what is happening across the border. So if you don't know, first, you can't connect. Even when people tell you to connect, what you don't know is risky. You think everybody is, your brother is the worst criminal. You cannot do anything with them. So that was why. And of course, the 110 borders separating our countries. How do you also get around it? For goods to move from one to the other, you post a transit bond, transit guarantee. Sometimes the customs in one country do not trust the issuer, and the other they have to put cash, and so on and so forth. So without this, there was no way you can do trade. And that was why they thought about doing all of this in 1963. The question again is, why did people not do anything about it? We decided when we started to launch our intra-African strategy, we recognized that Afrexim Bank was a forerunner of the AfCFTA. It created for that day that the continent will have a free trade agreement. Because as my brother will always tell you, a free trade agreement without capital behind it is nothing. So we then decided that we have a unique opportunity of beginning to change all of this. And that is why in 2017, we decided to launch, under our African trade strategy, to launch the African Trade Fair. Of course, it wasn't easy. The first one that was held in 2018, but it held, and see what we have today. And that was why we worked very hard with others to make sure that the AfCFTA became a reality. And when it became a reality, we threw our full weight behind it. And we're very, very, very happy. And it's something unfortunate to have a very dynamic, very knowledgeable person as his pioneer Secretary General. A bold person who did not set up thinking that the only salvation is outside Africa and not within Africa. And because he and his team had confidence in us, we had to pull our weight. We had to do our best not to let them down. And I'm very pleased that working together, we've done what nobody ever thought was possible. Whoever thought that by now we are finished negotiating and approving all the protocols. Look at all the ancillary activities and instruments we've introduced within a short space of a few years. So that is the story. And I think it's a remarkable story, a developmental story that our children should know about, because it did not come by chance. It came through deliberate action. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Your Excellency. And I am happy that you talked about the fact that the generations unborn ought to know about story. One of the areas that I wish to take from you, Your Excellency, will be learning some of the lessons that we can draw from that. But before that, and I'll come to that one, on the lessons that we can draw from you, Your Excellency Wamkele Mene, you worked hand in hand with President Oramah in bringing this about, in achieving this, and how far we've come. Today it's everywhere as a marketplace for the AfCFTA. From the AfCFTA Secretariat perspective, how has this journey been?
The journey has been extremely challenging, but also extremely fulfilling because of what President said. If our founding mothers and fathers directed that there must be a trade fair, that we must have a free trade area, and it has taken us almost 7 years to reach that point, I think all of us should have mixed feelings. Why did it take so long? Okay, we are where we are. How do we move forward? So for us, it started in April 2020, when the Secretariat was established. I was elected in February 2020. I did not have a gray beard at that time, and I had some hair remaining. 5 years later, I have a gray beard. The very first support that we received was from AfriximBank, because as President was saying, the development of our continent is not going to be financed by others. Our development finance institutions must finance our infrastructure development, our industrial development, and must invest in those areas of Africa's economy that others perceive to be too risky. The risk premium is too high. And so that's why the partnership with AfriximBank is so absolutely critical. Without AfriximBank, I can assure you, this would be an agreement on paper that is not being implemented. Today, as we speak, the result of what President was talking about is 2024 the year 2024, $220 billion worth of intra-Africa trade. Today, as we speak, Africa's largest economy, Nigeria, the most dynamic and largest export market for Nigeria is no longer Europe or any region outside, it is now Africa. The largest market in Africa is now exporting to Africa as primary export market. This should tell us something, that certainly as Africans we do have the capability to build a domestic market. Of course, it's going to be extremely challenging because the fragmentation runs so deep, and the fragmentation of our continent transcends. It is not just language borders, but it is also in payments. It is also in moving goods from west to east. It is much easier to transit your goods from anywhere in Africa to outside of the continent. So we have a very, very heavy responsibility to change all of this. I don't want history to judge me as an African and say, what did you do to reverse this situation? So I believe all of us have a very, very particular and specific responsibility to change the course of our continent. In practice, as I said earlier, that means that our SMEs, our youth entrepreneurs, our informal traders must be at the fore of this implementation of this agreement. It is as simple as that in my view. When we started in 2020, there were 19 countries that had ratified the agreement. Today, there are 49 countries out of 55. When we started, there was no trading, zero trading. Today, there are 24 countries that are trading under this agreement. The political will, the determination of our head states is absolutely critical in enabling us to move as fast as we have, and then also the trade finance component. The trade finance component is absolutely essential because, as I said earlier, and I want to emphasize the point, otherwise we would have negotiated a trade agreement that is empty. And I have negotiated my fair share of those empty trade agreements that have yielded nothing except, text and to enrich lawyers, those trade lawyers, but there are no tangible benefits. And so if we can direct trade finance to where it is required, for example, the Africa Trading Company, AfCFTA trading companies, enabling our SMEs to be part of this, I think that is the start of a truly transformative journey. I was told when we started that we congratulate you because in part we know that you are not going to do anything. You're just going to sign, pat yourselves on the back, and then go back to your countries and make excuses. And we fast forward to today. We have the Intra-Africa Trade Fair that is effective. Last year, 2 years ago in Cairo, $43 billion. I am sure here we will surpass. So there are tangible benefits and progress. Now, let me answer a question you did not ask, and that is, what do we do in this context where we have the tariffs, we have industrial policy that is benefiting one country, an investment policy. We have a domestic market. We should be focusing on how do we build a domestic market and forget about Donald Trump. Donald Trump will do what Donald Trump has to do for the United States. We have to do what we have to do as Africans for ourselves. And that is by building a domestic market for us to be self-sufficient economically. There are in Africa over over 400 companies that have a turnover of $1 billion more. So we do have a very, very thriving private sector that can take advantage of the current market that we're building.
I think we can put our hands together for His Excellency. For Your Excellency, President Oramah, the idea of IATF being the marketplace for the AfCFTA is a thing that if you talk to every African who understands it and gets to understand it, will tell you that this should live forever. Now, our concern, however, is how do we let this live forever? How do we sustain this beyond even our generations and let generations unborn come continue this? How do we sustain this, sir?
You see, sometimes people want something and they don't know they want it. That is what the economists call you create demand. Sometimes people want something, they know about it, they are scared of attempting to get it because they believe they don't have the resources. I think the trade fair, I guess, will fall into the second, in my view. So, the only way the trade fair can continue is not because people are emotionally attached to it. It is because people continue to see value in it. So that the person who moves, the big company that go the group who moves from Nigeria to come here, feels that they need to be here. So that the small SME in the Gambia that goes to their export promotion agency to say, I want to join the delegation because it has a felt need that I need to be here because there is something. And that is what is the key. What we have done to enable this is that we have proven the concept. We, AfCFTA Secretariat and the AU Commission, we need to take it to the next level. Make it an independent organization. And that independent organization that must be sustainable, but supported in the initial years so that it can overcome the usual startup challenges. And that we have already, I would say, started, almost done. The entity has been created. The headquarters has been selected to be in Zimbabwe. Afresa Bank has put up the initial $28 million to get it started. We're about to hire the CEO, and the CEO will hire whoever will work. The host country has obligations about the infrastructure to support the business of that entity. So I guess all this will happen between now and 2027 when we will have the trade fair in Lagos. But from then on, you have had a full-blown IATF organization, independent, sustainable, creative, making sure they offer services that me and you will find valuable and make us to come to every trade fair, not every 2 years now, maybe even every year. Make it possible to even have mini IATF to be sector specific, automobiles, agriculture, and then have one every 2 years that gets everybody there. So that is what we believe would make this work. But it has to also have a good governance arrangement so that the mandate does not deviate. Because easily, a business can follow the path of least resistance. If he feels that if he does something, it's easier to make money, to sustain, they'll be doing it. Then the harder work of doing intra-African trade fair would then begin to die. That is why such an entity must have a strong, independent board of trustees. But all these are things that we've created, not only the three of us, but the bigger partnership and, of course, the advisory council that had made it clear that it is possible for this to be on its own and be able to do even better than what we are doing today. So we believe that the same way that the advisory council had led what we've done, a governance body created to support this entity will also make sure it delivers on whatever mandate that has been given to it. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Your Excellency, Mene, what would you say would be the prospects going into the future, particularly leveraging on the partnership that you have with AfriEximbank and probably other partnerships that you have in the offing? How do we strengthen that and the prospects in future going forward?
We have already a very strong foundation of collaboration. President mentioned the various areas in which we are collaborating. The Trans Guarantee Scheme, rolling out the payments platform. There are others, the Intra-Africa Trade Fair, all of these different areas that have resulted in all that you see. And so the partnership is going from strength to strength. And I think that at some point in future, we will have to think about how the AfCFTA Secretariat gets subsumed into the bank to become an implementing agency of AfriEximbank. I don't want to get into trouble with the people in Addis Ababa, with the African Union, but to me it makes sense because the bank finances trade. We eliminate barriers to trade and investment. Those two functions are complementary. And where you have an environment where you can invest or finance projects where there are no barriers to investment or trade, the yield on your investment obviously has an opportunity to increase. Similarly, on the other hand, you have eliminated barriers to trade. You have an opportunity to see enhanced productive capacity. So I think in future, this is something that our head states must strongly consider so that we accelerate how far we can go. It is unfortunate that we were not established at the same time. And I always say that AfriEximbank, AfCFTA Secretariat are twins. It's just that one twin is 30 years old. The other twin is only 4 years old. But if you accept the proposition that you cannot benefit from a liberalized trade and investment market without trade finance, and conversely, if you accept that your returns on your investment can be enhanced in liberalized environment, the rational conclusion is that we must have a more formalized arrangement with the framework of the African Union. To me, that makes sense. I'm not trying to vote myself out of a job, and I hope my colleagues in the Secretariat will agree. But this is what makes sense. In the time that we've been working together, we have seen and we have proposed to AfrEximbank where we think that there are projects that should be financed that will benefit intra-Africa trade and that will benefit the receiver of the investment. So for example, when you go to the northern part of Zambia, Kasumbalesa, the border there, you see trucks lined up 10 kilometers. And that has been a very, very significant challenge for goods that are transiting from Zambia into the DRC. That requires AfrEximbank to finance a dry port. Similarly, if you go to Angola, the Lobito corridor, there are many examples where we see the deployment of capital that enables accelerated and heightened volumes of trade. And all of this is a result of the partnership that has grown from strength to strength since 2020.
Thank you. And Your Excellency, one important... Yes, President.
And just to add to what he's saying, you know, and the problem of the continent is the fragmentation, in fact, and in our brains. So we do not see the obvious. When we are asked to come to panels and ask an African, can you tell me the problem for Africa? We are experts in giving the problems, but they will list it as long as I am. The moment when somebody raises his or her hand to solve one, the same person up in arms against that person. What do I say this? That what he's saying is right. We know the kind of fight we fought just to tell people to do the payment system. So obvious. And you ask the person, okay, do we have a payment problem? He said, yes. Okay, what is wrong with the one we oppose? Can you tell us what it is? He doesn't have, but he doesn't want it. So you have to be tenacious, patience, and all that. And the person forget the big picture. With the Pan-African payment and settlement system, where we integrate our financial markets, we will actually begin to reduce our interest rates. Because if somebody issues bonds in Kenya, and somebody in Egypt buys the bond using the Egyptian pound because the yield is higher in Kenya, and so on, capital moves around at the end, overall in the whole continent, they converge. The price will converge. Now, we're trying to get around what SG is saying is the partnership. We are, I would say, joint shareholders in the AfCFTA adjustment fund, in the trading company, in the digital platform, and so on and so forth. What that does for us is that it brings us the perspective, the policy perspective. What it does for everybody is that you see two African institutions that are doing the same thing, but attacking it from different fronts, coming together to solve particular problems. I think with time, and as these interventions begin to get to scale, certain things will begin to happen without anybody decreeing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and I'm happy that you mentioned the adjustment fund, which the AfCFTA Secretariat, together with AfrEximbank, has together. And I should announce that we're going to talk about that pretty shortly. We will let you see what it is about after important assignment that we have. We're going to take just about 5 minutes. The entire Secretariat has been pleased with the support that they've gained from AfriExim Bank. The entire Secretariat, the entire continent, as a matter of fact, have enjoyed the support obtained from AfriExim Bank. And we have, the Secretariat has a small performance to just demonstrate in that appreciation. We will do that real quick. When we come back from that, we will let you see the adjust fund, and you would hear from that as well. But I was told, I don't know if I was vetoed, that if somebody wants to just say one question or have something to say as important, we would allow that. But it has to be very, very brief. And because we've invited colleague journalists around, we would allow this room for just a question, please. Yes, gentlemen. Okay, let's keep it very, quickly.
Good morning. First, I welcome you, Mr. Oramah and Mr. Wamkele, all your teams in Nigeria.
Can you speak up, or can we help with a better microphone so that you can be audible, sir?
Good morning. First, I welcome you, Mr. Oramah and Mr. Wamkele, Nigeria, and all your teams. You are welcome, and our businessmen, brother businessmen for Africa. I have one question for Mr. Oramah. First, all we know is effort doing the AfriExim Bank to develop trade and infrastructure in different countries in Africa. As all we know, Africa is the, let's say, the country, the continent which was infected by coronavirus. Is all this doing to, we have less infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure. My question is, Mr. Oramah, is there any program or any vision from AfriExim Bank to develop different infrastructure, health infrastructure in Africa? Thanks much.
Thank you. Can you develop infrastructure on what, sir?
Healthcare.
Healthcare infrastructure.
What do we do?
What AfriExim Bank, the plans AfriExim Bank has
Infrastructure
on healthcare.
I know they finance one hospital in Nigeria, 500 beds. Is there other project, or it's the only project which financed by AfriExim Bank? Thanks.
Okay, no, thank you very much. First of all, the big infrastructure bank in Africa is African Development Bank. But we do infrastructure, trade enabling infrastructure. We also support infrastructure that promote tourism, leisure tourism, medical tourism, and so on and so forth. So with regard to the health care, we have a health and medical tourism program. Under the health and medical tourism program, we provide loans, guarantees, advisory services, and so on to people who want to develop healthcare facilities, hospitals, pharmaceuticals, and related activities. But under the same program, we have an initiative called the African Medical Center of Excellence Initiative. This initiative was created or was developed to proactively begin to deal with the problem of the rising incidence of non-communicable diseases on the continent. It was also created to help us begin to also take our destiny in our hands in terms of research and development with regard to drugs and therapies that will help in dealing with diseases that affect people of African descent, which are not receiving any attention today. So it is based on that initiative that we've built the first African Medical Center of Excellence in Abuja, Nigeria. And we are about to also launch the development of 2 others, one in Cameroon, one in Africa. The studies for those are ongoing. And we are doing these projects in partnership with King's College Hospital, London, Christie's Oncology Center in Manchester, and on the training side, University of Wisconsin Teaching Hospital. The goal and what we have achieved in Abuja is to build a world-class facility in terms of diagnostics, nuclear medicine, and areas of specialization of each medical center. Abuja is a specialist area for cardiovascular, hematology and hemato-oncology, and oncology, but it also deals with all general care. We will also have specializations in the others. We expect someday in the future to have 5 such centers in the 5 sub-regions of the continent of Africa. And to help us also solve the problem of research with regard to diseases of health interest to people of African descent, the hospitals are centers for trials, also for research. In the Abuja facility, we have a research facility. And we're lucky to have this because of the partnerships we have with the great hospitals I mentioned earlier. And also the fact that we are also attracting all the research centers around the world who have expressed interest to do research with the African Medical Center of Excellence. We also, our board approved the establishment of the African Life Sciences Foundation, which is a foundation that is intended to provide grants, especially research grants, for the kind of research that is today, as of today, not being funded. Take, for example, sickle cell. Take, for example, certain kinds of cancers that are affecting people of African descent, but are not attracting any research interest. So this will go and provide the funding to do that research. And our board has made the first donation to that Life Sciences Foundation of $75 million. We are going to raise additional $525 million so that it can start with $600 million. We are hiring now the CEO of that foundation. We are also expanding the partnership with major drug manufacturers and also major foundations and trusts who want to partner with us and work with us in pursuit of these objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That should be it for the questions. Since the Secretariat has this wonderful sort of gesture that I intend to do, I will just take, Your Excellency, just about 2 minutes for us to go through the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund. I had quite a number of questions. Those who are watching online have been asking questions, but it's important that they get to know about it, because we know that this is being launched here, and then get to tell those who can participate and utilize the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund. It's important we get this message across. So maybe we'll see it on the screens. The website has been launched. A lot of things have gone on. But what exactly is the AfCFTA Adjustment Fund? If we get that from you, Your Excellency, it would be great. Your Excellency, Mene, let me start with you on that, please. Your Excellency, President, please.
No, you go, and then I come.
Well, the adjustment fund is intended to support countries to implement the AfCFTA. We know that there are countries on our continent that have an embedded, if I can use that word, an advantage in terms of export readiness, and these are the countries that will be the first beneficiaries. But we don't want to leave it at that. We want to make sure that all countries benefit. So the adjustment fund is going to intervene. We'll make specific interventions to ensure that countries are supported to implement the adjustment fund. Exim Bank made available a seed capital amount of $1 billion. The chairman of the Adjustment Fund, President Ekra, is here with us, who's leading us in establishing the fund. It is actually already operational. And the first disbursement was made to support a company. But the main criteria is intra-Africa trade. For you as a company or a government, in the case of the base fund, it must be in support of intra-Africa trade. Yeah.
Would we then say that from this adjustment fund is launched and it can be assessed from now? Is it operational now? Your Excellency President.
Yes, just to go from where the LG stopped. So the adjustment fund, as he mentioned, there are 3, call it sub-funds. The whole goal is to help countries to adjust in an orderly manner to the new regime. There are countries, as he mentioned, who use tariff as source of revenue rather than as just trade policy. So when you liberalize, they will lose that revenue. So adjustment fund has a compensation mechanism in place. There are many countries, as he said, who are not prepared to trade now. They may have factories that are import substituting industries. They may not even have enough production capacity. So the adjustment fund is intended to be available to those people, including the private sector, to enable them to prepare to take advantage. Also available to governments to enable them adopt the protocols that have been approved. These things cost money. So if they don't have the money to do it, of the type concessionality they need, they will put it. And if those protocols are not adopted, there will be no trade. So that's why the adjustment fund has 3 sub-funds. The base fund is the compensation window from where grants, so to say, will be paid to countries, eligible countries that suffer from tariff revenue losses from arising from the liberalization. But there will be a qualifying condition for you to be able to benefit from that. You have the general fund. The general fund is a constitutional window that countries can use to be able to invest in embedding the protocols. So it's not a grant, it will be repaid, but it will be concession. Then you have the credit fund. The credit fund is a commercial window, but it's available to companies, to even sovereigns, but for commercial purposes to do projects that will prepare them to be able to take advantage of the market opportunities that the AfCFTA offers. As at today, the credit fund is working at the chair of the adjustment fund is there. The credit fund is already working. They did a first deal 2 months ago. They did a first deal, and I guess they have a number of transactions on the pipeline. The base fund is almost ready. Our President Bank also put some grant money into it. And we are working out how to mobilize additional funding from the state parties and maybe from us, so that it is reasonably well funded to be able to support eligible countries. The concessional window is the one that is under development as we speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for our distinguished visionary leaders. We can do it better. Let's put our hands together. Thank you very much. And on this note, I'd love to invite the Secretariat representing the entire continent of Africa who are going to demonstrate the appreciation of the people of Africa to His Excellency President Oramah. Can we have, please, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Your Excellency, if you can help us with this presentation. The entire AfCFTA Secretariat is pleased with the help, support, partnership, visionary leadership of President Oramah, President of AfCFTA Bank. For so many years, this wonderful visionary leader has supported the continent of Africa, changed the financial and economic fortunes of this continent. And today, the Secretariat of the AfCFTA Secretariat, represented by the Secretary General himself, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, the leadership of the AfCFTA Secretariat, present this beautiful gesture to you, Your Excellency Oramah. In recognition of the wonderful work that you have done for the Secretariat, you have done for the continent of Africa. Now, what is written on it, yes, you can't read it from afar. Professor Benedict Oramah, President and Chairperson of the Board of Directors, African Export and Import AfCFTA Bank. In recognition of the visionary leadership and steadfast commitment, the AfCFTA Secretariat honors Professor Benedict Oramah, whose unwavering support has been instrumental to the growth of the AfCFTA. As President of AfCFTA Bank, he stood as one of the earliest and strongest champions of Africa's single market, leaving a legacy that will continue to inspire generations on the continent's path to integration and prosperity. Africa is proud of you, sir. AfCFTA says thank you. We have next coming up a masterclass a beginner session for small and medium enterprises. You can sell the message across all pavilions. All small and medium enterprise, you are invited back here in the AfCFTA pavilion. The IATF is the marketplace for the AfCFTA. If you are small and medium enterprises, a masterclass is next in this same pavilion. AfriExim Bank, we are most grateful. Thank you.